It was a rough Royals debut for Bailey Falter, and another Royal will make his team debut tonight. Let's dive into them both next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how this channel works, I will be bringing you episodes Monday through Friday, 30 minutes in length. And Chance Lebo, the host of the Locked On Royals postcast, will be broadcasting live at the conclusion of all the Royals games, and he'll go for about 15 to 20 minutes. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off on your order. It's only valid through September 30th, so order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Rough go of it for the Royals last night as they were, I don't want to say beat down by the Red Sox, but the final score didn't really show how dominant Boston was. And this game, for the most part, was all wrapped up in the first inning. And it's disappointing for sure because we all know that was the debut for Bailey Falter in a Royals uniform. And last night, or I should say yesterday afternoon on our episode, we talked about this matchup and what needed to happen for Bailey Falter. It wasn't a favorable matchup for him because he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's going to rely on the fastball being well located and getting ahead of hitters. And I thought the Royals broadcast did a really good job last night of showing some of those numbers of what needs to happen for Bailey Falter in each and every start. And it's not that we all need to overreact to one outing. It wasn't good, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say, well, he was one pitch away from getting out of that first inning with only 2 runs allowed. Well, the reality is he didn't. He hung a slider to Jarren Duran, who put it 440 feet from home plate. Like, we're not going to sit here and say, well, he was one pitch away. No, it was an awful outing on every single level. There really wasn't a good thing I could take away from Bailey Falter's performance. It also doesn't mean that the Royals lost the trade or he can't make his next start. That just was not a favorable matchup. And that's going to happen from time to time. And Bailey Falter's numbers so far this season have been good. And he's faced good lineups before. I mean, he faced Detroit in his final start with the Tigers. Maybe it was his second to last start. And through 7 innings, a 1-run ball, struck out 8 and didn't walk anybody. Like, it's just a more favorable matchup for him than it was facing Boston in their right-handed heavy lineup last night at Fenway Park, a park that really can favor the hitter with the short left field with the green monster. And then you've got that wide open right center and right field. It's a unique ballpark in terms of dimensions. Not going to use it as an excuse, but I went into that game last night and thought things are really going to have to go well for Bailey Falter for this to be a win for the Royals. Now, I expected this offense to provide more than 1 run off of Brian Bayo, and as good as his numbers were, there were a lot of opportunities for Kansas City early on in that game, and they didn't come through. That's another problem about last night's game. Second and third, nobody out, and Jonathan India can't get a ball over to the right side or just put a ball over to shortstop and score 1 run. That was an absolute huge moment in the game because it was 5-0. That gave you a chance to at least make it 5-2 with the top of your order coming back up. But you get the strikeout by India. Bobby Witt then walks, which I actually thought was the second worst thing to happen in the inning because that then set up the double play ball. And Vinny didn't ground into a double play, but he lined out to second, and then Maikel Garcia struck out. But this is more so about Falter's outing. And moving forward, it's very obvious what needs to happen. When he's facing Minnesota on Sunday, which I believe that will be his next start lined up because Walker's going to throw tomorrow, and that would line up Noah Cameron to throw Friday in Minnesota, and then Lugo Saturday, bring it back to Bailey Falter on Sunday. And that'll be a much worse lineup that he'll be facing. Not that it needs to be the end-all, be-all, right? Because if this team makes the postseason, they're not going to be seeing Minnesota. They're going to be seeing teams like Boston and likely having to go back to Boston to beat the Red Sox there. Now, that's getting way out ahead of things. The Royals are still 4 games back in the playoff picture, and Boston is a team that is not running away, but has played tremendous baseball since they traded away Rafael Devers. And I thought in that series in Kansas City, that was the difference. The Red Sox had Rafael Devers, the Royals did not. And last night, I looked at that Red Sox lineup, and there are some names that don't pop off the screen. You get Romy Gonzalez, right? You get Rob Refsnyder. Now, they've got fantastic splits against lefties, hence why they were in the lineup against Bailey Falter. And he just didn't do a good job at all in getting ahead early on in that first inning. And the other problem to this, which will be a continuous thing in each and every start, is that he does not strike out anybody. He's got the second lowest chase rate in baseball, and his strikeout rate is not high whatsoever. So when he's pitching well, it's not so much the punch-outs. It's pitching to contact. It's keeping the ball down, getting a lot of ground balls, playing to his defense. He did not do that last night. When he would get ahead in the count, he would leave too many pitches in a hittable location, and the Red Sox did damage. And then he also lost a couple of hitters in that first inning. Wilyer Abreu, somebody that hits sub 200 against lefties, he walks him on a 3-2 pitch. It was a great take and a great pitch by Falter. Don't get into a 3-2 count. You got to be more aggressive in that spot. And he's going to have to be more aggressive against Minnesota and moving forward. But I'm not going to go as far to say, it's a terrible trade. He's never going to be good. It was a bad outing, and it was probably his worst outing of the season. Good news is he'll be facing some lesser lineups to get back into a rhythm. That's what I believe he needs right now. It was an ugly performance. Maybe you chalk it up to nerves, new team, tough ballpark to pitch in, and now he's going to go to Target Field and face a lesser lineup in Minnesota. If he doesn't pitch well then, it kind of depends where the Royals are at and where Stephen Kolek is down in AAA Omaha, and he threw a quality start in his first start with the Storm Chasers. But I'm not ready to say that Bailey Falter needs to be removed from the rotation. He didn't pitch as well as Rich Hill did, right, in his 2 outings that he had, but the upside is still there. And they're going to have to work with some things there. You can't be even a back-end starter with an incredibly low chase rate, an incredibly low strikeout rate, and not the best command from time to time. If you're going to have a low chase rate, low strikeout rate, you got to be able to pitch to contact, high ground ball rate, right? Using your defense, using a good infield, and try to play off of that. And he's going to need to do that in his next start. Now, it brings me to tonight. Ryan Bergert's going to get the start for his Royals debut, and his tall task is facing Garrett Crochet, one of the front runners for the American League Cy Young. He is not going to work that deep into the game, in my opinion. You ask 4 innings, maybe 5 out of Bergert if he's really pitching well, and you need the offense to pull off a miracle against Garrett Crochet. Easier said than done, and easier said than done when he's pitching at home. But again, like Bailey Falter, I'm not going to put all the weight onto him. If Ryan Bergert has the same outing that Bailey Falter does, it does not mean that Ryan Bergert's terrible and he's not going to be any good. It's just an unfavorable matchup tonight. Do you still go out there and expect to win? You do. You got to beat good teams, and the Red Sox are a good team. But this is not one that I go into tonight saying you need Ryan Bergert to shove. No, the reality is the Royals offense needs to scratch across 3 or 4 against Garrett Crochet, and Ryan Bergert needs to give you 4 solid. That's what you need tonight. And really, for this series as a whole, as important as it is to catch Boston, it's kind of not unique, really. It's kind of odd that going back maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Red Sox were seen as that team is you got to be chasing them, right? Because they are the last wild card team. They were 4.5, 3.5 games ahead of you. Now I believe they're 5 up on the Royals, or maybe even 5.5 now that I think about it. It looks now like the Yankees, of all teams, in their free fall, and the Rangers and the Mariners are the teams you have to focus on for this point in time. It's not to say Boston can't free fall. Roman Anthony was scratched from the lineup. That's another injury they're going to have to deal with. You expect some of their pitching to regress a little bit. But still, right now, I can't say they're going to regress when they're playing great baseball. And for the Royals, getting out of Boston with just one win bare minimum needs to be a focus. Because if you get out of Boston with one win, it sets you up at 3-3 going into Minnesota, where the goal has been and always will be, you go 5-4 on this road trip. They went 2-8 on their 10-game road trip the last time they went to 3 different cities. You go 5-4, you're not complaining about that with Washington, the White Sox, and the Rangers all at home right after this. So if you can take one from Boston, sets you up to either take 2 or 3 from Minnesota, or better yet, sweep them, and a 6-3 road trip would sound very, very nice. So tonight, as intense as it feels of, man, you got to find a way to even up this series, the odds are going to tell you that's not going to happen. Now, baseball is unpredictable and anything can happen, but you're facing a Cy Young frontrunner and you've got a rookie making his team debut for the Royals. It's quite a tall task. I mean, if they were not able to hit Brian Bayo very well, it's going to be even harder to hit Garrett Crochet, even if they throw every righty they have into that lineup tonight. So we'll see. Not going to completely write it off, but I'm not going to put as much pressure on Ryan Bergert as maybe I did on Bailey Falter. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about the base running gaffes the Royals have had this year and why last night was just simply inexcusable. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can always catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Want to tell you about FanDuel, and with FanDuel, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. For my pick, I am going to take the over on strikeouts for Garrett Crochet, and I will also take the over on strikeouts for Ryan Bergert. So yesterday, went with the under with Bailey Falter in strikeouts, the under in strikeouts for Brian Bayo. Just going to flip it for tonight's game. Feel that Ryan Bergert can get some swing and miss, and I definitely know that Garrett Crochet is going to get some swing and miss well as he continues his phenomenal season. In the 8th inning last night, there was a brief moment where you felt that the Royals might have been able to pull off the impossible. Down 8-1, they really start hammering the Red Sox bullpen. Jorge Alcala, who had phenomenal numbers against the Royals in his career, he gives up back-to-back homers to Vinny Pasquantino and then Maikel Garcia. Mike Yastrzemski, who had a 2-hit game, he triples off the, I want to say it was right near the foul pole in the Green Monster, or right near the foul pole, I should say. But he triples. Adam Frazier singled him in. Nick Lofton doubled Frazier in, and it's 8-5. And then Randall Grichuk strikes out. Jonathan India then walks on a pitch that he should have been rung up on. We can take out the bias there. That was absolutely strike 3. And it was, who was out there? Justin Wilson, I believe, was pitching. Or maybe it was Whitlock, I believe, that was out there. And he was not getting the call there, which set up Bobby Witt Jr. as the tying run. And you felt in that moment, especially last year. Like last year, when a moment like that would happen, Bobby would put one over the wall, or he'd gap one, or he'd put one down the line. You just felt it coming, and it was always first pitch. And that's exactly what happened last night. He gets a first pitch cookie, but this time he just guides it out into right center field to one of the strongest arms in all of baseball in Wilyer Abreu. And there's this confusion at third base. Vance Wilson, who I actually do believe has done a good job, a much better job this year than last year. I thought last year there were some really questionable sends that just burned the Royals in multiple games. This year, I can't really go back to a time where he sent somebody and I went, that was a horrible send. And it's not that he sent Nick Lofton in this situation. It's either that he was not animated enough or Nick Lofton wasn't paying attention. Now, Annie Rogers came out today with another great article, and she said that Nick Lofton was quoted as saying, I got lost in the moment. I wasn't even thinking about what the score was, and I just can't happen. He took full responsibility as a great teammate does. He did not throw Vance Wilson under the bus. He said, that was my fault. I wasn't thinking in that moment. I got caught up in everything, and I was just trying to score. And I will say that in baseball, and really in sports in general, it's hard to stay really mad at someone that is playing the game hard. And if he was dogging it down the line and, he was thrown out because he wasn't hustling, totally different story. If you're trying to score and you get thrown out, those mistakes do happen. But I will say last night in that spot, in that scenario, we will criticize both people on this because Bobby Witt Jr. singling to right center field set up bases loaded for a guy that had already homered in the inning, and he was going to be facing a right-handed pitcher. And the Red Sox were on their third pitcher of the inning, so they were not going to be able to go back to a lefty. They couldn't go to Chapman at that spot. They would have had to have had Whitlock face another hitter. At least I believe that was the case because Grichuk had struck out. And then, or maybe, I can't quite remember. I believe, though, that he would have had to face Vinny Pasquantino. If not, and they were able to go to Aroldis Chapman, still the point stands. You have someone that had homered in the inning coming up representing the go-ahead run, and now a ball in the gap, a ball down the line ties the game. And you have a 7-run inning. It's still unlikely that all of that happens because we can't play the shoulda, woulda, coulda, or the what-if scenario. The reality is it didn't happen. But I'm more so hammering in the point of the constant base running mistakes this team seems to make. I mean, I go back a few weeks ago, Tyler Tolbert, as great as he was on Sunday in Toronto, he gets picked off as a ghost runner in extra innings. Now, Jonathan India makes up for it, and he has the walk-off 3-run home run, but those mistakes just can't happen. Getting thrown out on the bases like that. And yesterday, there needs to be two things that happen. Number one, you understand where the ball is hit, which that is Vance Wilson's job. So Nick Loftin with 2 outs knows that on contact, I'm running. And when he's running, he looks directly at Vance Wilson because he can see where the ball is. He is tracking when Wilyer Abreu gets to the ball, and everybody's aware of the fact how strong his arm is. And if you were going to run on Wilyer Abreu, it better be in a 1-run game, or he better be off balance, right? Like he is having his momentum towards center field. He's going to have to either plant and pivot, or he's going to have to throw on the run. He still will be able to get a lot on it, but you feel better about your chances of scoring. And what didn't happen, from what I could see in the replay, again, maybe I missed an angle, so if you got a better angle, let us know in the YouTube comments. But Vance Wilson has to be far more innovative than just a hand up, which that's the angle I saw. So when Lofton's running, and if you see your third base coach with just one hand up, that may not register in your mind that I need to stop. You have guys that have 2 hands up and they're waving their arms, stop, because you don't want to confuse them where waving your arms can look like waving them in. So you do have to just have the 2-hand stop sign, in my opinion, and you have to be in the line of sight where Lofton can see that, and he needs to be aware of the situation. He needs to be aware that the ball is coming in, and I'm not going to be able to score on this. And it's better to play it safe in that spot in a 3-run game than to risk it and ending this inning. It's not to say Vinny Pasquantino would have come through, but better to have a 4-run inning when you're down by 3, come to a conclusion with a guy grounding out, popping out, flying out with the bases loaded, than getting thrown out at the plate when you still need 2 more runs after that. That's the difference here. Even if Nick Loftin scores, it doesn't change what needs to happen in the inning. It makes it 8-6, and you still need Vinny to come through. So him scoring or getting thrown out did not change anything. And still getting 2 runs off Aroldis Chapman in the 9th would have been very hard to do with his 1.24 ERA. So if he would have scored and Vinny pops out, it's still a big uphill battle to tie the game off Chapman, which is why you try to go for the knockout punch there. Bases loaded, gap 1 and tie the game, or go yard for the second time in the inning. That's what needed to happen, and we didn't get that opportunity. Now, it's not the reason the Royals lost the game. Bailey Falter was not good. They were down 8-1. So we can't really nitpick that one scenario and say that was what changed everything. No, what changed everything was the 5-run first inning. But I would like to see Vance Wilson, because he's been great at this. You see him on plays at third. He gets on the ground on his belly and is saying to his runner, get down. We've also seen him put the stop sign up and also send guys in a risky situation. I go back the night before, or was it Sunday? Might have been Sunday or maybe Friday. It was in the Toronto series, but he sent Vinny Pasquantino on a sac fly. I want to say it was Sunday. It was on Yaz's sac fly, and you just knew you needed that run. And Vinny's not fast, and that was a very, comfortable angle for the left fielder. I want to say it was Loperfido at the time to make that throw. So he had a good send there. And it's just like with bullpen decisions, when a third base coach sends somebody in, risks the play, has a risky send, it's not going to be rewarded. We're not going to look at it and say, what a send that was. No, we're just going to say that was a great hit and good on the guy to score from second or to score from third. But when they make the mistake and send somebody who gets thrown out, it gets put under a microscope. And we're going to analyze every little thing that went wrong. But Vance Wilson's got to be more animated in that spot. And Nick Lofton, I believe, has to at least give a check. I know that he's going to put his head down and run because you're trying to make a difference in the game. You're running hard. You're relying on your third base coach. But that angle where the ball was hit, it allows you to give a glance to right field. And I believe if he would have looked up halfway through, he would have seen the ball coming in, and he could have retreated back to third base and gotten back safely. But again, too many times this season, we've seen mistakes on the bases, and it's cost the Royals some runs. Last night, I would have rather them play it safe, not try to score the run, and give Vinny Pasquantino a chance off the Red Sox bullpen. Again, it didn't lose them the game, but it certainly didn't help them in their quest to try to make a comeback. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's take a quick glimpse at the wild card race and where everybody stands as of this morning. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Want to tell you more about the title sponsor of today's show, and that would be 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days at the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Golf is all about the good times with people and good flavors, of course, and that grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders as well. But get your day started, get your golf game started as well with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. There wasn't too much of a change in the wild card picture last night, but if you were into keeping up with it after every single game, I will promise you that you will be far more disappointed than hopeful because the wins never seem to do as much as the losses do. But right now, it still does feel a little bit wide open. And the Royals are not completely buried in the wild card race. And it goes back to my point where winning one in Boston is pretty crucial. Because if you can come back home with a 5-4 road trip or 6-3 road trip, you'll either be 500 or one game over 500. And then you have the Nationals and you have the White Sox back-to-back series at Kauffman Stadium. That can put you in a very favorable spot to be playing multiple games over 500 nearing the middle portion of August. But where things stand, you've got Boston atop the wild card picture. They've won 6 in a row, and they are 63-51, 2.5 games up on the New York Yankees, who are an absolute free fall. They got swept in Miami. They got walked off last night against the Rangers when they led by 1 in the 9th inning. But they are 60-53. The Mariners are also 60-53, tied with the Yankees. Then you've got the Rangers, who walked off the Yankees, as I said. They are 59-55, 1.5 games back of the Mariners and the Yankees. Cleveland, of course, won last night at Citi Field against the Mets. They were up 5-0. Then the Mets tied it up 5-5, and then they won it in extra innings by 1. They're 2.5 games back, and 57 and 55. And then you've got the Royals at 56 and 57, 4 games back of the Yankees and the Mariners. If they can get to 500, that would probably put them, I say 500 by the end of this road trip, that would probably put them in the category of striking distance still. They'd probably be 3.5 to 4 games out of a wild card picture. So right where they are right now, but then they would have some favorable matchups where they could really make up some ground. So the goal of this road trip, in my opinion, is to make sure you don't put yourself 6.5 games back. And that's not going to happen, in my opinion, with this Boston series. The good news is they go to Minnesota right after this, and that's a Twins team that is just playing uninspired baseball. It allows you to make up some ground, even if this Boston series doesn't go well. It does feel, though, like this Boston series is going to be looked back on when it's all said and done. If they get swept by Boston, you are going to say, well, that series is what made me either lose all hope or it really buried them in the wild card race. And everything after that just felt like you were scratching and clawing to stay alive. I don't want to put as much pressure on this series because it is still August 5th and there are 49 games to go. And we know that 2 games, these next 2 games are not going to decide everything, but it can change a little bit. Because if Boston finds a way to sweep you in this series, they put themselves in a very comfortable spot when it comes to just the playoff picture. They would have a pretty healthy lead on the Yankees and the Mariners, and they would be burying another team that's chasing them in the wild card race, at least for catching them. It doesn't mean the Royals can't catch up to Seattle or New York, but it becomes very unlikely that Boston is a team that you are looking at to fall out of the playoff race. Like if Boston wins these next 2 and they're winners of 8 in a row and there's 14 games over 500, I'm not sure you're looking at them in the final 47 games of, well, they could always have a rough stretch and then they're out of the playoff picture. I don't see that being the case. Even with a really rough stretch, a bad stretch of baseball, they're going to have the second or the third wild card picture. Right now, the focus needs to be on the Yankees, Mariners, Rangers, and Guardians. Not to say Boston can't be in that conversation, but you are much closer to those other teams I just mentioned than you are Boston. I mean, Boston, you're 6.5 games back of. You lose tonight, that's 7.5. That's a lot of games to make up over 48 games. And that's just not where my attention is zeroed in on. You got to look at some of the teams that are struggling. I mean, Seattle's not a team that's struggling. They've played 500 ball over their last 10. Same goes for Texas. And then Cleveland and the Royals are both 6 and 4 over their last 10. Cleveland is one that's just not going to go away. I can't really explain it. I'm a big run differential guy. Cleveland's just never going to die. Cleveland is always going to be in the playoff picture. They're not going to bottom out. I'd be floored if they did. They are going to be a team you're going to have to worry about between now and the very last game of September. Texas is playing some good ball, and I thought that the Yankees were going to get out with a win last night, but the Yankees are the team that seem like the team that's teetering at this point in the playoff picture because they are a game and a half away. If the Rangers sweep them, the Yankees are out of the playoff picture. Unless the Mariners really struggle as well, because that would put both of them out, and then maybe Cleveland could leapfrog those teams. But to me, New York is a team that is banged up. The bullpen is really scuffling. And now out of nowhere, they've become that team that looks very vulnerable. And they are the one team of the top 6 that is playing bad baseball. Boston is not, Seattle's not, Texas is not, Cleveland's not, and the Royals are not. The Yankees are the only team of those 6 that are not playing good baseball. It can make you concerned that eventually a team like the Yankees is going to pick it back up and they're going to catch fire. Keep in mind they're doing this without Aaron Judge. And once Aaron Judge comes back, that's going to obviously boost their team and boost their lineup. But they're the team that is weak right now. Their bullpen is struggling. They've had some pretty crushing losses over this 4-game losing streak, and they're playing a team that is right on their heels. And I'm not sure it gets a ton easier for New York after this, because I'm looking ahead to the weekend series for a lot of teams. Like this Thursday through Friday, I believe, this Tuesday through Thursday, the Mariners have the White Sox. So that could play into the Mariners' favor right there. And that could push them into a second wild card spot. And the Yankees could be that team that get leapfrogged by the Rangers. And by Thursday or Friday, we could be talking about a Yankees team that no longer is in those top 3 spots. But over the weekend, you've got the Yankees playing the Astros. I mean, it does not get much easier after they leave the Rangers. The Tigers, they'll be playing the Angels, another team that's right behind the Royals. The Guardians will be playing the White Sox in Chicago. The Rangers will be playing the Phillies, and the Royals will have the Twins over the weekend. So that's where things are right now. Still a lot of moving parts, but the Royals really need to get into that 2 games out, 2.5 games out, before you can say that they are right there. They're hanging around. They're still in the rear view mirror. Like, you notice they are there, and they have the ability to go on a hot stretch. But they got to find a way to take one in Boston, and they're going to have to win that series in Minnesota. Or as I said yesterday, maybe they can even sweep Minnesota and come back to Kansas City with a 6-3 road trip. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow, once again, we're going to recap what happens in tonight's game. And then we're going to look at this offense and how much you can believe in them. They've been great out of the All-Star break, but are they going to be able to keep it up until the end of the season? We'll tell you our thoughts on it tomorrow, but until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.